up, guys, and welcome back to another episode of Dominate Every Aspect. And in this week, I wanted to talk about how big of changes you should make to your plan if you happen to stall. Now, as many of you guys know, little precursor here, my weight has still been dropping over the many weeks. I believe this is the 9th week that I haven't made any changes. But for those of you who are following along, I know a lot of you are in contest prep, and you're probably having to make some changes along the way. So, if you are encountering a stall, what do you do? Well, obviously you need to make some changes, but how many or how big? I think this is where a lot of people falter, is they just slice and dice too much when their contest prep is starting out or along the way. And you know that if you start hacking away at the very beginning of your prep, that you're going to run out of room really quickly. So for example, once you make your initial cut from your surplus phase to your maintenance or a slight deficit phase and your weight starts to drop, so whatever that number may be, it may be a lot for some people depending on how big of a surplus you're in, but once you are in a deficit, how big of changes should you make? Well, I'll tell you what I usually make. With myself, like if my weight were to stall right now, obviously I've been in a deficit for a while, I would cut about 15 to 20 grams of carbs per day out of my diet. And that's per day. Some people might do like 50 to 60 or even more depending on if their weight is not moving. And while that might get it to move, that is a surefire way to end up at poverty macros very, very soon. So let's look at it this way. If I were right now to cut 50 carbs from my diet, that would put me at 275 grams of carbohydrates. Would my weight drop? Without a doubt, it sure would. But my body would eventually adapt to that point, and then I'd have to make another big cut, and then I'd be at like 225. Last prep, I got down to 255 grams of carbohydrates per day as my low, and then I reversed from there. So, and that is a lot higher than a lot of normal people eat. I'm not saying I eat the most out of everybody during contest prep, but I can get away with a lot. But here's the thing, and why I can get away with more, one of the contributing factors is my small incremental changes. The reason why I can make small incremental changes to my diet is because I do nail my macronutrients every single day. I'm not eyeballing things. I'm weighing just about everything on the scale. And I'm hitting it no matter if it's the weekend or if it's not, if it's during the week. I don't do cheat meals. I do controlled refeeds. So I'm controlling every single aspect of it. So I know that I could take 10 to 20 grams of carbohydrates away, and that's going to make a big effect on me. Now, for someone who is not necessarily tracking to the best of their abilities, who's eyeballing a lot of things, you can't make a change of 10 grams of carbs per day because you could be eyeballing the difference of 10 grams of carbs a day without even knowing it. So one, you have to make sure that you're sticking to your diet, you're weighing everything out to the best of your abilities, and that you're tracking it to the best of your abilities. You can't be mistracking things, misweighing things, and then expect to make a change of 10 grams of carbohydrates and expect your weight to move. So unfortunately, for those people who maybe aren't as accurate, you might have to make bigger changes. I'm not a fan of making bigger changes because obviously, like I said earlier, you're going to run out of room. But secondly, depending on how far away from you are at the show, that's just that much longer of time that you have to eat super duper low macros. Now, don't get me wrong, and I had this conversation earlier this week, a couple of my clients, they check in with me even though they see these videos and they're like, how's your prep going, whatever. I'm like, it's going pretty well. Obviously, I'm still hungry, right? Even though I'm eating 325 grams of carbs a day, my calories are at like roughly 2,900 calories, I'm still hungry because that's where I'm currently sitting. But I get to eat a little bit more because of the way that I control my diet, because of the amount of muscle mass that I have, because, let's be honest, my metabolism is a little bit better than your average competitive bodybuilders. We'll see where I get in this contest prep, but without a doubt, I'm still going to make these small incremental changes along the way. You're not going to see my check in 1 week and it's not going to be disappearing 50 grams of carbs. You know, if anything, a large change for me will be 20 to 25 grams, and that's a big change. I don't think I'll do that, but we'll see how my weight goes along. So if you're in contest prep and you stall, we talked about food, but let's talk about cardio. So how much cardio would you be able to implement as well? Depending on your activity level, obviously that's going to play a large role. But typically for myself, although I'm not doing any cardio, mainly for my clients, you know, I will add I could add as low as a couple intervals of HIIT if they, once again, are doing that correctly. But I could also add up to, you know, 10, 20 minutes of miss just to get their energy expenditure up a little bit more, because you can't just add 5 minutes of miss, you know, per week. That's not going to be that much. You can't just add one interval of HIIT. Once again, that's not going to do that much. So you have to make a large enough change to create a larger caloric deficit in order for your weight to go. So really, I would say like 4 to 6 intervals of HIIT, and then I would say a minimum of 10 minutes or really 20 minutes of miss if you're going to make a change, and that's total added to your week. Obviously we have things like, you know, fat burners and stuff, but those are, I would recommend at least implementing them in the very last stages of prep if the macros and if the cardio are already too high. So guys, hopefully you're making small incremental changes to your diet if and only if you are being very precise with your tracking abilities. So as always guys, I hope you learned something from this video. Keep dominating every aspect, and I'll see you next week.